Hello everyone, I am Gui Valente and this is the Valente Brothers podcast. Today I'm here with Pedro Valente.
Hello everyone, happy to be here.
Joaquim Valente is not here, he's teaching seminars. So we're going to be doing this in a dual format. And we're going to be discussing today something that recently we debated here at Valente Brothers. One of our students was asking us our opinion, of course, the Jujutsu philosophy's view on the eye for an eye style of dealing with situations. Of course, we can discuss the history, the origins of the eye for an eye, but I think it's a good opportunity for us to talk about the necessity for what some people call a payback. Some people view it as a lesson. Some people view it as a necessary means to stop aggressions from happening again. And some also view it negatively as a revenge. What are your thoughts on the eye for an eye, Pierre?
Yeah, the Latin term lex talionis, right, which is something that is as old as human beings have been on this planet. If you go back to the Hammurabi Code in Babylonian time, this concept is already part of their law, the concept of retaliation, proportionate retaliation.
And I think that's the key. Now, many times it's misinterpreted.
Correct.
Actually, eye for an eye is based on a
Mosaic.
limit, a limitation.
Correct. Mosaic law, the Old Testament, the Hebrew Bible, it's also included there. And the idea is to make it fair, so that you respond with that your response is proportionate to the injury that you received. I think it's very connected with the fight or flight principle. I think human beings, when they're confronted, when they're attacked, many times they are prone to fighting back. You get hit, you hit back. It's an instinct. Not for everyone. I think there might be a genetic component. Even when you see small dogs, many times you attack them like you just, as if you're gonna not physically attack them, but you go towards them in an aggressive way. Some will run, some will stay and bark and want to fight. So there is an instinct to fight back. When it comes to the Jujutsu philosophy, my belief is that you should fight back if your intention is self-defense. If you need to fight back so the person doesn't, as a preventive measure, so that they don't hurt you in the future. But if the idea...
Or they stop hurting you.
So that they don't hurt you in the future, so they don't hurt you.
What do you mean in the future, meaning in a different situation or at the moment?
It could be the future in a few seconds later, or even 10 days later or a month later.
Okay,
yeah.
Because that's my question. So I think there are two different scenarios. I think that's why I'm making this distinction. Some might say, and I'm not sure if you could even find a way to justify that lawfully, legally, where I have to fight back, I have to retaliate so that this individual does not come back.
So I was talking from a...
But I was thinking initially, right, at the moment.
Correct.
Right? And our teacher, Hélio Gracie, he made this distinction. He talked about how if in order to stop a crime, if in order to stop an attack, you had to fight or you should fight, he would say that he would fight all the way if he could stop something from happening at that moment. But if the crime had already occurred and the criminal had already left, the attacker had already left, you should not go after him.
But I believe that that's in the context, because I was speaking before in the historical context. But when you have the rule of law, and when you have an established system of government with protections for the individual, a police force that is going to intervene in your favor, then you should use those mechanisms if you want to live within the confines of the law and respect the law, so that you're not going to go after someone so that they don't come back and hurt you. You use the police, you use those mechanisms to protect yourself. But at a time when there's no police, and you think that if you let the person go, they're going to come back and kill you and your family, then you might have to, somebody who has hurt you, you might have to hurt him back, you might have to stop them.
But these scenarios are very rare in our society.
Correct, 100%.
But that's why maybe in the past, or in some situations where there is no authority, or at least a respected authority or a recognized authority, you see some of these retaliatory measures being taken. So, but as far as the Jujutsu philosophy,
practical for our experience in the way we live our lives today in our society.
Yeah. Of course, we have to think about, when we think about Jujutsu philosophy, we think about Jujutsu history and its connection with Japanese history, right? With the samurai. Samurai, they come from a time where you saw a lot of that. You saw a lot of retaliation.
Correct, because they felt that they had to defend their honor. If they felt that they were insulted, then they believed that they had to
fight back.
Okay,
but then that raises an interesting point, because you have been recently invited to participate in a very successful podcast in Brazil. Your episode already has almost, I think, 500,000 views. One of the top episodes. And you said that during, I think, a 3-hour-long episode, you said at one point that when someone insults you, you should not take that as an attack to your honor.
Correct. And that's different than the time of the samurai. We live in different times today. There are different. There is a different set of rules for our life. We can't speak for how the samurais lived their life at that time in the Middle Ages in Japan.
Based on what we see today or what we have.
Yes. Using our current norms. But for practical use in our society at our times, I believe that we should only fight to defend ourselves or someone else in the moment. I don't believe in fighting as an act of revenge. I don't believe in fighting to teach someone a lesson. I don't believe that that's our role. And also, it is illegal to do that. The only reason why you are allowed to fight according to the laws, at least the laws of the United States, is in a situation where you are threatened, where you're being attacked, or there's an imminent threat of an attack. In those situations, you are allowed to fight in self-defense.
And just a quick point, the law changes from state to state.
Correct.
And as self-defense practitioners, we recommend all of you to be aware of the laws of your state.
But you always have the right in America to defend yourself if you don't have any other way out. What changes is that in some states you have a duty to retreat, meaning if there is another way out, if somebody's attacking you and there's a possibility of escape, you are obliged to escape. Only when there's no opportunity to escape, you're allowed to fight.
Or you have states like Florida,
where you are, if somebody's attacking you, you're allowed to fight.
Stand your ground.
Stand your ground. You're allowed to fight when you're being attacked, even if you have a possibility of, you're not forced to escape. You can fight back.
So, one of the reasons why the legal system is in place is so that an individual does not feel the necessity to take measures upon himself to make justice with his own hands.
Correct.
Right? You have the legal system, you have law enforcement. What if an individual feels, right? We have many cases where you see a relative in a court of law attack the person who committed a horrible crime, right? Many times that killed a family member. What is your view on that philosophically?
Yeah, it's very difficult for me to pass judgment on something like that. Anytime you see something like that, maybe a little girl was raped and the father's attacking the rapist, you definitely can relate to that, especially those of us who are parents. We can relate to that. And in no way would I judge that negatively or would I criticize someone who does that. When we see that, there is even a sense of admiration for that act. But philosophically speaking, we believe that we must attempt to respect the laws of the place where we live in. It's part of the agreement. The social agreement is that there's a constitution, there's a set of laws, there are regulations, and we live under those laws and we accept those laws. To do that is illegal. So you are choosing to live outside the laws. If you choose to do that because you believe it's the right thing to do, then it's your choice. But I believe that, especially those who have a sense of spirituality and also believe that there is a higher power who is also going to a higher intelligence, who's also going to create fairness in life, then you might be able to go to sleep knowing that everything is going to be properly handled.
I think that when we talk about the eye for an eye or retaliation, revenge, I think we have to, especially based on the way we were raised, we have to also touch on a very important word, which is forgiveness. So, as you said, it's very hard for us. We should not pass judgment on someone who feels like it's not enough, right? Jail time is not enough. The justice system is not making this right, and they end up making a decision to do something that is not legal. So what are ways, Pedro, and I know that you study this a lot, for someone to try to find some sense of peace and some sense of forgiveness? You often talk about this very tragic incident. I think it was inside a church.
That's what I was going to say. So I said that I admire the father who many times decides to fight for the child against someone who committed a terrible act, an unspeakable act. But I also have great admiration. There's an example of, I think it was in Georgia, a Christian church, where this person came in and shot and killed many of the children of the members of that church. And
it was an active shooter.
It was an active shooter
incident.
And then later, I was able to see some of these mothers who lost their kids forgive this shooter. And to see those older ladies forgive someone who killed their kids was also something that I greatly admired.
Now, how do you know they forgave for what they said, right?
Well,
because they said that.
No, but just the fact that they are meeting that person. No, they met him and they told him to his face that they forgave him and embraced him. That to me is a great act of courage.
And who benefits the most? Who do you think benefits the most from that?
Those who are forgiving. And you asked me, the question that you asked me was, how can you achieve that ability, that level? How can you gain that ability to do something like that? That's hard. I don't even know if I would be able to do that. Philosophically, I think it's the right thing to do. But I don't know if I would be able to do that. I hope I would. But the only way is to work on your spirituality. You have to develop yourself spiritually to be able to get to a level where you can forgive.
But what if someone says, I don't believe?
No, but spirituality is not about, to me, spirituality is not about a specific religious belief. It's working on your spirit, believing that there's a higher purpose for your life, whatever that might be.
How do you believe that if you don't believe in a certain God, religion?
A sense of that's not my case. I do believe in God. But I can see someone who doesn't believe in God, but still believes that there is a reason for them to live their lives that is so important that transcends material gains and material benefits.
So, you know, this reminds me of a story. I met this gentleman one time over dinner, friends of a friend, and he was a theology major, I think, and he was studying at Harvard University. And he was telling me that even though he studied theology, he did not believe in God. But he said, I'm trying to believe in God because through my study, I've realized that life makes more sense and is easier, and it's easier to be a better person if you believe in God. I know certain individuals that don't believe in God, or at least don't have a religion. I haven't talked to them deeply about this, especially this topic. And they're great people.
Correct.
Very benevolent people. But I do understand the point that this gentleman made about believing in God makes it easier for you to be a better person. Now, we know a lot of people that believe in God and that sometimes even in the name of religion do horrible things. Mm-hmm. However, I think that as humans, we need a certain, like you said, a sense of purpose. And that sense of purpose might be very hard to achieve or to realize without the understanding of a higher...
Without faith.
Yes.
I agree with that. For me, I believe that faith in God helps me be a better person.
I think it creates a sense of accountability also.
Yes.
And, but you should do it. You should be good just for
the sake of being good.
Sake of being good. Human nature.
And that goes back to forgiveness. You should forgive just for the sake of forgiveness. But the truth is that when you understand that forgiveness helps you, because I see some people who are very bitter, and they tell me, I will never forgive. So that person has been injured, that person has been hurt, but by deciding to never forgive, they're doing that because they hate the perpetrator so much that they think, I'm never going to forgive because they don't deserve to be forgiven. They're thinking that they're hurting the perpetrator, but they're hurting themselves by not forgiving. Because when you don't forgive, what does that mean? You continue to hate that person. But the question here is this: does forgiveness mean to forget?
Well, that's a famous, right, quote about you forgive but you don't forget. I think you should not forget, and I think there's two separate issues, and especially according to the Jujutsu philosophy, you should never forget. Somebody does something wrong to you, you should keep that on the back of your mind at least.
Because we have to define forget.
Yeah.
We have to define forget. We're not claiming that you should hold a grudge. Because when you think, I'm not going to forget, that means you're going to remember the feeling and cultivate that feeling. No, when we say don't forget, it's exactly what you said. It's from the Jujutsu philosophy, from the self-defense perspective, which means what? If you hit me in a certain way, I have to remember that so next time I can defend myself. So we believe that you should never forget in that sense, but not the emotional weight of continuing to hate. Because forgiveness to me is being able to not hate someone anymore, to not feel hurt by somebody anymore. It's a feeling.
Correct. So this reminds me, it's slightly different, but I think it really applies. The fable of the frog and the scorpion, right? The scorpion had not necessarily done something to the frog, but
no, I think it's very, very pertinent. I think.
Yeah, but the frog, for those of you that don't know, if I remember correctly, the fable is about the frog helping the scorpion. So the scorpion needs help to cross the river. And even though the frog was very hesitant, because the scorpion had the reputation already of attacking, with
Yes.
sting,
That was his nature.
the frog still decided to help and allowed the scorpion to go to his back so that he could cross the river.
And the scorpion bit him, stung him.
Yeah, stung him, and I think the frog even asks, "Why did you do this?"
Because I'm a Scorpio.
Exactly. So, but was the frog wrong?
These are deep questions that were. it's.
And Pedro, and let me just say this, and I think that's why it was a very important debate, and that's why I think we decided to bring this to our podcast, because there's so many levels of this in our life, right? And you can choose to be vengeful. Is that the word in English?
Yes.
Vengeance. You can look for vengeance in so many small things, right? You don't have to even break the law. But is that positive? Should you do that? And the other question is, should you give people a chance? Do you believe in second chances? And I think that's what connects to this fable. Even though you know this person already did something wrong, even though you know this person has a bad reputation, if they need help, should you still help?
Yes, but in a way that anticipates that person's nature. Like, if I could help, if the frog came to me and said, "What do you think?" I said, "Let's try to help the scorpion, but in a way where he can't attack you." Right? But if you, in order to help the frog, you need to expose the scorpion. You need to expose yourself to be harmed. I don't think it's a good decision.
Because you should use your experiences. You should use
correct, and you should always. And self-preservation is very important. That's an instinct. You need to protect yourself. You need to respect yourself. And so you do everything in your power to defend yourself. Now, you should not become selfish. You should always help others. Right? There's a very famous quote in politics: "Trust but verify." What does that mean? I trust, but I verify. And if my verification does not give me a good sense of protection, that I feel safe, good sense of safety, then I'm not going to trust.
Yeah, because part of the Jujutsu philosophy, the 753 code that we organized, is the word benevolence. And one of the words that Hélio Gracie also really liked, and it was part of his professor's criteria for his diploma, was helpfulness.
Yes.
So you should never use this, for example, this fable, as a way for as an excuse for you to say, well, I'm not going to help anybody because, I'm not going to put myself at any risk. You need to find
the golden mean. I would bring Aristotle here into this conversation. Anything that you do that is positive, you should find the right dosage, the golden mean. Because when there is a deficiency of something good, that's negative. But also, if there's an exaggeration, that's not going to be good either. Like even drinking water. Water's great, right? But if you drink too much water, it's not good for you. So helping others is good. But if you do it, trusting is good. But if you trust blindly, that's too much.
Yeah, and I think that's what happened with the frog. The frog actually did not help the scorpion. The scorpion did not help him because he knew the nature of the scorpion, and it would have been better because the scorpion ends up dying, at least in the version I remember. So it's what you said. Even to help, you need to know how to help.
Yes.
Let's go back to, I'm not sure if it's a fable, but it's a classic, something our dad talked a lot about. I think politicians use it many times. Instead of giving someone fish, teach them how to fish.
And at that point, you have to use reason, because a lot of times people help, because they're weak, not because they really have the intention of helping. It's
Parenting.
because they can't say no. And many times people don't help because they're weak, because it's fear.
Yeah.
So those
Fear of exposure.
correct. Those two extremes are bad.
But let's talk briefly about parenting, because I think also that's another great way for us to discuss what is help. So if you have a child and you just help them
With
in
everything.
with everything, are you really
That's
helping
fear.
them?
No, that's fear. What you want to do with parenting is you want to give the child the ability to live without your help. You want to give them the ability eventually to not need you anymore. So if every problem they have, you solve for them, that's usually parents with low self-esteem as well, because they want to, I did this, I helped you, I did everything for you. They want to feel good about themselves. But the truth is that when you're a good parent, you want to give them the tools. As you said, you don't fish for them, you teach them how to fish.
So let's just circle back and connect it with eye for an eye. So I think eye for an eye many times comes from, even though it's misinterpreted and we established that, it's actually a limitation so that you don't disproportionately, right, in the past, you would not disproportionately punish someone.
Yes.
Right? If they take one eye, you just take one eye. You don't take
Sure.
more than that. So how does this connect? If you are helpful, if you are benevolent, I think you need to be confident, right? There's a sense of self-reliance.
To be unselfish, you need confidence.
But at the same time, this self-reliance sometimes might make you always have that necessity. If he did something to me, I have to do something back.
I don't think that's confidence. I think it's the opposite. I think it's insecurity. Because you don't feel good in your own skin, so you always have to prove something to yourself.
Interesting.
You're not comfortable. Right? I do believe that confidence allows you to stand up for yourself, to say no, to say stop. If somebody puts the hand, take your hand off of me, get away from me.
Correct.
You push, I push you back, in the sense of like, don't do that to me. That's because I have self-respect. I'm not going to let you take advantage of me physically, emotionally, mentally. However, if I have a necessity to teach somebody a lesson, to punish someone, then it becomes insecurity, because it's your necessity to prove something to yourself or to others, because you're not feeling comfortable.
So I think this is, in my view, this is really what we agree on, which is if they push you, you have the right to stop the push.
100%.
If you're
And sometimes that means pushing back.
correct. If you're being,
Or even elbow them on the jaw and knock them out, and you say, wait, but that's disproportionate. Well, let me give you an example. A big guy pushes a lady, and in a way that, like, I'm going to kill you. And so, but he only pushed her. But she feels that the next step is going to be something worse. If she only pushes him back, then he might knock her out. So she does it first. Preemptively, because she felt at that moment that the push was not going to be the only thing, that he was about to do more harm.
So I think in practical terms, it goes back to what Hélio Gracie always taught us. After years and years, after many experiences, after having lived in different times in Brazil,
very long life,
after having had to fight in street situations, and even after having had even problems, right, legally, and to deal with all
emotionally,
that.
And
emotionally, and
things that he did that he regretted.
Yes, he was very clear about his opinion.
Yes.
And he said, you can fight back, and you should fight back in order to defend yourself. And you should have that ability, but never as a revenge.
Yeah, because he also believed very firmly, there's I think an ancient Chinese quote that says, when somebody injures you and somebody harms you in any way and you want revenge, don't do it. Just sit by the river, and eventually the body parts of the person who harmed you are going to pass by.
Floating.
It's a little extreme.
Extreme.
But
hopefully, philosophically, you don't need that.
No.
As a motivation to.
But he felt that
nature. He called it nature.
Nature would take care of it.
Correct.
You didn't need to do it yourself.
Yes.
That what you had to do is you had the right to fight back and defend yourself and defend somebody else in the moment. But later, you should just leave it up to nature.
And that's why I believe, and I think you believe, I'm sure you do, that this higher purpose, that understanding the law of cause and effect, some people call it karma, but the laws of cause and effect, and I think religion helps us in that regard, are very important.
Once again, the golden mean, because sometimes we see extremes. People are like, I'm against violence. I'm in favor of violence if it's done for a purpose.
Correct. Good. Very good. I hope all of you enjoyed this conversation. If you have comments, I know some of you do that, please leave them for us. I think it's always very nice to read about your feelings and your ideas, opinions about our episodes. Don't forget to like this episode, to start following our pages, and to turn on the notification bell. Thank you so much, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.